Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making time for this special session on financial literacy and business innovation. I'd like to first of all introduce myself. My name is Nima Jirte. I'm here to be your moderator for this specific session. We have a set of professional panelists from the financial and economics, as well as investment and academia. And we're privileged to have them come on board and as well as make time for this special session. I know we're recording as well. Thank you very much for the team behind the stage. And I'd like to start on my right side, if it's okay. And on my right side, we have Mr. Umar Sheikh, who's a career banker, a CEO of Takaful Insurance, and has a long career in the banking sector in Kenya, including working with Barclays Bank and First Community. Welcome, Mr. Umar Sheikh. Next, we have Madam Sahra Ahmed Koshin. She's an author, but as well as the Deputy Executive Director of Sidra Institute, and she'll be covering on the area of women and youth in the financial sector, as well as empowering and them in the business sector. Thank you very much, Sarah, for coming all the way. Next, we have Mr. Abdulkafar Abdullahi. He's an economist focusing on fiscal economy, and he works with the World Bank, currently focusing on microeconomics and fiscal management in Somalia. It's a great pleasure to have you, Mr. Abdulkafar. On my left side, we have Ifrah Osman, an investment consultant, an entrepreneur of her own, as well as investing in Arki business in Somalia. Thank you very much, Ifrah, for coming. Next, we have Nejma Jebri from Gulf African Bank, covering, she's the head of actually women and youth banking. So she'll be covering a lot on that and how the youth, and we see many youthful faces here, can access the financial services in the banking sector. Thank you very much, Najma, for making time. Last but not least, Mr. Hussein, who's been a long-time panelist of this forum. Hussein Jama is the CEO of ML Express. ML is a global money transfer organization that has been working in this region for a very long time, and we're very much glad to have his expertise and time. Thank you very much, Mr. Hussein, for coming. So I just would like to start with a couple of questions, and then we'll have almost like 45 minutes from the panelists to hear from their expertise on their long-term experience in the financial and business sector, and then we'll go the last half an hour to the audience for further questioning and enlightenment. So a little bit of a background, as you all know, this is the Somali Heritage Week, and we're focusing on the Somali community, their contribution to the Kenyan economy, but as well as regionally. And many of my panelists are Kenyans, and as well as people who've come to work here and contribute to the economy. And I wanted to ask them basically to talk about a little bit of the Somali community's contribution to the economic development of Kenya. And maybe I could start with Umar Sheikh.
Okay, good morning. Maybe a wide question, but I'll try to scale down in a few minutes. Generally, the contribution of the Somali community to the Kenyan economy is enormous. Initially, it has started off with a very rudimentary scale of trading, like livestock, and very little maybe farming, but largely pastoralism. Over the years, people have become great entrepreneurs, and this was speeded further by the fall of neighboring Somalia. When Somalia fell down, quite a number of the people who had the means came to Kenya, and they actually transformed how business is done in Kenya. If you look at what's happening in Somali, these tall buildings, the entrepreneurship, the international linkages, international trade, all this was at a very nascent stage But when they came, quite a number of things have evolved, and actually the Somali Kenyans and those from Somalia as well had to do things together in a big way because they needed each other for the experience, for the host, for being host, and for us coming there with the capital and the like. And also the people from the diaspora had a big hand in transforming the economy, such that it came to a situation whereby the Somali community has been recognized, whether people want it or not, for their contribution to the economy of the country, and also the change they have made from various areas in real investment, in trading, and so many other areas. A few years ago, if I may say 10 years back, we had only had one bank in Sli, and now there are more than 10. That tells you that the Somali community is a voice to reckon with when it comes to the economic transformation of this country. It may be quite hard to quantify in terms of now, but what's coming from outside the country, what's generated inside, and the way business is being transformed is an area that's to watch in the next few years. It is doing very well, but a lot more will happen. And more importantly is the segment in which they are playing, various areas like petroleum, textile industry, livestock itself, and so many other areas. So if you look at the Somali community today, they're almost commanding a lead in very key sectors of the economy, including the petroleum, the real investment, the real trade, real investment estates, and more particularly in the area of cloth merchandise, and many other areas they also feature into. So in a short, I will say that the community has really made a place in the economic transformation of this country.
Maybe I turn it to Hussein a little bit, because the remittance is also a large contributor to the Kenyan economy, and we've witnessed the impact of that in last year when the closure of the remittance sector. And you've made a little bit of a statistics in our last discussion. Can you highlight that?
Thank you very much. Remittances are very big in Kenya. The estimates, actually not estimates, but the data from the Central Bank of Kenya is somewhere in the region of $1.5 billion per year is remitted into this country. Out of that, the vast majority of it, about 70%, goes through commercial banks. 30% of it goes through an institutions that I represent as their chairman, which are the mobile remittance companies that were recently licensed by the Central Bank of Kenya from 2013 onwards. So generally, we are talking about between $250 to $350 million per year is remitted into this country through the remittance companies that are licensed, and a significant part of it is the two largest companies within that are well known, and they are basically of Somali background. So generally, I think that we are contributing significantly to both this economy and the wider economy in East Africa, in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in South Sudan, and Uganda. Thank you very much.
That's very good. Thank you very much. And maybe we can move a little ahead about the general and economic exchange between Somalia and Kenya, and trade is one of them. Abdul Kafar, you have a great background on this.
Thank you very much. I think I will start generally to give you an idea about the size of the Somali economy and the structure. Somalia is a small economy. The GDP of Somalia is estimated at only $5.6 billion in 2014, and 5.9 is estimated in 2015. The growth rate of Somalia economy, the nominal GDP has been 5%, which is not a bad, given the circumstances that is coming out. Somalia is only 12.3 billion according to the UN estimates of population. That makes it per capita income of 450. That's 1/3 of Kenyan per capita income. It's not a very rich country. It's one of the 5th poorest country in the world, but it's a trading country. If you look at the economy, the structure of the economy, when you look at it, consumption is 133% of the GDP. It's very high. Investment is only 8%. What do we trade? I mean, when I say trading country, almost everything we consume comes from somewhere else, is imported. imports of Somalia was $3.3 billion, which is almost 60% of more of the GDP. All these are financed by remittances and some donor fund, but mostly by remittances. When you look at the trade in Kenya and Somalia, that's a question. I'll come back to talk more about the private sector and other areas of the Somali economy if the opportunity arise. But to focus on trade, 23% of Somalia's import comes from Kenya. It has the potential to be a lot higher if it were not for insecurity in the transportation corridor between the borders in Kenya and Somalia. So a lot of these imports is probably these cat and other products. But then these two economies with the connection with the Somali communities, Kenyan Somalis and Somalis, has great potential to be an important partner for each other. Given the economy's structure and the growth, usually countries after a long period of post-conflict experience a burst of growth, a high growth rate right after a peace is achieved. Well, that's called peace dividends. We haven't really realized that yet in Somalia, given insecurity still goes on. Smooth political transition, improvement in security will unlock the Somali economy, and hopefully it will grow much faster. But those are some of the preconditions that's necessary for growth to pick up. I'll come back to other aspects and if there are questions, but this is where I will stop. Just to set up the stage, what we are talking about now is not only Somalia's economy, the challenge they face, but also how it interacts with the rest of the world, particularly in Kenya. We will talk about the financial sector of Somalia, what contributions they make, and what they can learn from. I think we have a lot of interesting things to talk about Somali economy as it links with sectoral experts, and we'll have a nice discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, very useful. I'd like to turn back to Mr. Umar, and from your long-term career in banking, you've witnessed a growth in the Kenyan banking over the years, a very vibrant banking sector that is also spreading to the neighboring countries. What are some of the best practices countries like Kenya and Somalia can exchange?
Okay, thank you. Certainly there is a lot that neighboring Somalia can borrow from Kenya. The financial system in Kenya is quite robust. It has been beefed up. It is very strong. There's very strong culture of doing business. There's very strong governance. And instead of reinventing the wheel, it's pretty much easy to borrow some of these things. Among them is the fact that Somalia, I believe, right now is largely unbanked because banking system has been absent, other than informal sectors like the hawalas, and the few that are present now. First of all, one of the quick things they can learn from the banking in Kenya is the area of customer acquisition. How do you acquire your customers? How do you know them best? To prevent some of the non-financial long-tail risks. As a result, when you are born on a customer, there are certain risks that might come later in life. And therefore, those are one of the key things they can learn from Kenya, which is greatly developed here. As you acquire customers, no two people are the same. People have different needs. They have different lifestyle. Their business cycles are different. Therefore, that segmentation and not one size fits for all will not be a very relevant thing. So they can immediately learn from that kind of approach in the market, where certain products work, where certain segments work, and the like. But one of the key things that they can learn from Kenya immediately is the area of doing banking the proper way. The proper way. Somali largely a pastoral community. They have not been in private banking. The Somali government was controlled by the government, owned by the government. So I don't think they have that experience of running a private banking institutions. Therefore, but here is largely private venture owned by Kenyan public and others. So that idea of run a bank the way it's required, being patient, establishing the bank, giving time to learn those problems, and also learning from what has worked in Kenya, what has not worked in Kenya, and actually what is the things that can be borrowed immediately, like very good robust systems that can serve the customers while having very strong controls, a very strong culture of customer service, and categorize their products is a very key thing. Another very key borrowing that can happen, that can be borrowed by our neighbor Somalia and brothers there, is that the internal controls, what is the internal control, what will work, what will be prevented, how do you prevent fraud, how do you prevent control failure? When you're giving some money to somebody, what are the models that you use? All these are developed here, well known here. So it's a matter of just getting trained or getting some people from here to take the skills there, such that on the onset, those robust controls and the mechanisms for business, doing business and preventing the long financial long-term risk can be curtailed immediately, can be borrowed immediately. But one very key thing above all this, which every serious business must have, is the area of corporate governance. Corporate governance is a great thing sweeping all over the world now. In the last 10 years or so, we have heard of the fall of the great corporations in the world, across the world. Examples, the Barings Bank, HII Insurance, the Lehman Brothers, and one which everybody will remember is the Enron, which fell around 2003, 2004. All those fell as a result of serious corporate governance malpractices. And this comes as a result of weakness in controls, weakness in risk management, conflict of interest, and so many others. Since this pain has been felt elsewhere in the world, and the world has now changed the way of doing business with corporate governance as the key thing that's very key for doing business for a very long time, gives the business the license for a very long time, it will be very prudent for our neighbors to borrow the concept of corporate governance and start with the banks. And those that are existing, they borrow and steal. That will be the very long-term plan, strategic plan. That will be the key to the success of the financial system in Somalia for a very long time, and that they can borrow very quickly from Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abdul Ghaffar wanted to compliment you on some of the things that the World Bank has been doing for the last few years to address some of these challenges.
I think it's no surprise to anyone here that Somalia's financial sector has done very well over the years in the absence of regulatory environment. However, what my colleague said is really important. They are still, compared to Kenya, not close. But what's required is, in fact, a central bank that is capable of ensuring that the banks behave. The regulatory environment is quite important. Supervision of the banks to make sure the banks are solvent, they are doing the right things. And the Central Bank of Somalia in the last few years have taken very important steps towards building a regulatory environment, a supervision department, and anti-money laundering, as well as figuring out how to regulate. Not only in the financial sector, but the private sector in Somalia thrived in the absence of regulation, but there is a limit of how far they can go. Somalia's banking system is not well connected to the rest of the financial environment in the world. They don't perform the functions that financial institutions are supposed to perform as well as they could. And that's the reason is very simple, is a financial system that's not regulated properly will not be accepted into the community of the financial world. There are regulations of the systems and the standards, and that's where the governance at the central bank is quite important. There are a lot of activities taking place. There are a lot of international donors who are trying to help, World Bank, IMF, and others who are trying to build the institutional structure to enable the central bank to fulfill its role as a regulator of the financial institutions. Once you have those regulations in place, then it opens the doors for collaboration with the Kenyan and other banking systems. It creates an environment where the Somali financial institutions can learn from the rest of the world, have these kind of interactions, and that interconnections at the moment, a bank in Kenya will probably be resistant to engage because of potential risk in the absence of a regulatory environment. But that's changing, and there is a great opportunity for financial institutions in Kenya to either participate in the financial sector in Somalia and Somali's financial institutions to learn from that opportunity. And I think the sky is the limit. There is a great opportunity. There is a positive outlook, in my personal view, of the financial sector, because they are a key driver in the Somali economy. They facilitate remittances, they facilitate imports, they facilitate financial transactions. But that, we all remember when international banking system starts de-risking, which means trying to limit the exposure to unregulated financial markets, it affects us all. It affects the Somali Kenyans who want to invest. It affects Somali diaspora in other countries who want to support and send money to Somalia. The remittances is estimated 2 billion, approximately 1.2 to 2 billion, and that's, in my view, as underestimation. It's much higher probably, and we don't know the exact number yet. But there is that potential of regulation at the central bank to enable the Somali financial institutions to be able to link with others and learn from them. As my colleague says, corporate governance, that is things that when the banks are regulated, they will have to do those kind of things, my colleague discussed it, in order to meet the regulatory requirement and also attract customers and improve investment to vulnerable members of the community or the businessman to grow. I'll stop there, but maybe we'll come back later.
Very much. And we want to go down and look at it from an individual level. And one of the issues mentioned as I was preparing this forum was the issue of lack of financial inclusion. And Hussein, I'd like to highlight why is that an issue and how can we address it?
Okay, thank you very much. The situation in terms of financial inclusion in Somalia is not very... the market is very small in terms of the potential. The market is very small in terms of the number of people with formal bank accounts. Current estimates are something like less than 2%. You can contrast that with the scenario in Kenya where we're talking about financial inclusion of more than 75%. However, we're very optimistic. I was saying earlier during the preparation, I come from an engineering background, but if I was giving a career advice to a lot of the young people who are sitting in front of me today, I tell them to go into finance. And because there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of potential. And basically, finance is what drives the economy. And essentially, we're feeling that the picture is very bright. Why is the picture and the future is very bright? The reason I believe that the future is very bright is because we have 6 licensed banks currently in Somalia that are now regulated by the Central Bank of Somalia. We have 12 money remittance companies that are formally regulated by the central bank. I think there is 2 insurance companies. One has already been regulated. The other one is coming from Kenya that is entering the market. So the financial sector is really robust. It is growing, but from a very small base. Nonetheless, we accept that. It's from a very small base. But that means the potential is enormous. And I feel that the way forward is we will have more people, women, children, the youth will be now more included into the financial system and the economy in general. You can talk about the youth and women.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going to the youth and women, I have my sister Sahra who's done a tremendous research on this, and maybe can tell us a little bit of what are the challenges and opportunities for women and youth in the financial sector.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Nimro. Thank you to the organizers. I am here to share with you some of the, I'm speaking from a very practical point of view. I am from Somalia, literally. I just got here a few days ago, and I represent an organization called SIDRA, based in Garowe, but we do work all over Somalia. We conduct research, respond to capacity needs, and provide consultative inputs. We have recently done a study on Somali women in business in order to find out, what are the major challenges facing women and what are avenues for opportunities. To begin with, just to share with you some of the some background information about Somali women in general and the economy in Somalia. I've been to many places in the world, and I can tell you that Somali women are very, very economically independent. The Somali culture is one of the cultures in the world that I have seen that enable and allow their women to to own land, to own businesses and run businesses. It's not a big deal for a Somali woman in Somalia to own land, to open a shop, to operate that shop. Contrary to what many people believe or say, and also in comparison to many other cultures in the world, for example, in the Zambian culture, where I grew up myself, it's very difficult for a woman, a Zambian woman, to own land or even to inherit land. So, building on that, a very important fact, we did that research and we found out that, to begin with, even though Somali women are owning small and medium enterprises or small businesses, there are some significant challenges to speak about, and that are important for the government to know, and for Somalis in general to know, in order to develop policies that really are effective and that work and respond to the needs of Somali women in businesses. To begin with, one of the challenges we faced is that there are no policy and regulatory frameworks, as was said earlier by the speakers. There are no standards to adhere to. There is no systematic research done in Somalia on businesses in general. We don't have reliable data that we can count on and compare with and say, oh, this is how it was last year, this is how it was 2 years ago, this is where we are today, and this is where we could end up potentially in the coming years. Somali women don't have a lot of financial support. You will find that in many of the calls for proposals, for opportunities that are out there online, and that are inviting African women and youth to apply to, Somali women are excluded from that because oftentimes they are not in the they don't meet the conditions. You will find that sometimes they say Commonwealth countries, or they will say that Somalia is not included in here, or they mention other countries because Somalia is a very fragile state, and it's very difficult for a Somali national with a Somali passport to travel abroad and to make use of those opportunities. There are no associations for Somali women in businesses. For example, I was part of a team from Somalia that we traveled to Tanzania. This was facilitated by the IFC of the World Bank Group for the study tour, and we discovered that Tanzania is actually one of the countries in the world where women are very, very, they are thriving in businesses and economically. There is even a Tanzanian women's bank. There's even a Tanzanian Women Chamber of Commerce, and we've been to some of these associations where women are in doing farming, or they're doing various things, and they are very, very economically independent. In order to learn from them, we don't have that in Somalia. There are no associations to unite Somali women in order for them at a very low level, at a very specific level, to come together and say what are the challenges we are facing in our subsector. In Somalia, it is kind of a taboo to allow children to mess or to handle money. And I think that early childhood education, especially for the girl child, to introduce her to how to manage money at the very domestic level, at the household level, in order for our children to grow up having had knowledge of how to handle money and how to do businesses and what to buy and how to, when you make laws and all of that. We don't introduce our children to financial management at a very young age, neither at school nor in the house. I have here with me, in fact, in the audience, some of the women who are from Somalia, in fact, Somaliland. Over there is Hodan. She's actually from the Somaliland Women Business Associations, and I'm sure she'll be happy to share with you some of the challenges that women are facing in Somaliland. But I can say that they're more or less the same. We share a common challenge in that we've worked together before, in that sometimes women go to banks and they want to open an account, but they are told by the management to come with their spouses, and on the condition that they come with their husbands or a male figure. And this can be a very big challenge for a Somali woman who owns a very big business and wants just to, to do some banking. The SMEs, according to the World Bank research done and by Ernst & Young and in collaboration with the World Bank, SMEs don't grow in the third world, in developing countries. You will find the same also exists in Somalia, where a Somali woman is owning a shop. She doesn't know how much money she's making, in terms of income and expenditure. We spoke with a very big sample of Somali women throughout Somalia in order to find out what mechanisms they have in place in order to find out how much money they are making and what indicators they've used. But really, they are not at that level. Somali women often, typically, at the home, she has a shop in front selling products, but the family is also entirely consuming from that shop, is eating the food being sold in the shop. And most of the women we spoke with, they don't really care about making profit as long as they have something to eat every day. And this is a very important fact to know, that people, when you are socio-economically challenged and at that stage, one of your biggest priorities is not to make a lot of money, but really to provide for your family the immediate basic needs for your family. Are we able to eat today? Are we able to have clean water? Are my children going to school? So when you have a small thing going on, you don't think very big because you're struggling, basically. In order to respond to these needs, we, as Sidra Institute, have a partnership that we recently developed with the IFC, the International Financial Cooperation, which is a World Bank group, in order to respond to the need. And we think that if you we took a sample of 20 Somali women. They've been here the past 2 weeks in Nairobi, as a matter of fact. They just returned home 2 days ago. The idea behind this is there is something called the Business Age Toolkit, which is a response to the research done by the World Bank and Ernst & Young that has concluded that SMEs are not growing in Africa. And because people don't have a strategy, don't have a plan in place, don't have the knowledge, and these women have been trained by the IFC here in Nairobi as TOTs using the Business Age Toolkit, technology, knowledge infrastructure in Somali language, and have been educated, have been enabled, have been equipped with those tools so that when they go back home, we want, as a pilot study, to find out if indeed, with the necessary knowledge in place and the tools in Somali language, if that really can work for the Somali women back home. And we look forward to that collaboration. We look forward to the outcome of that collaboration. Indeed, I will be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was well detailed. Maybe to hear it from an entrepreneur herself, and what are some of the financial obstacles you face as being an entrepreneur in Kenya and Somalia as well?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. It's been a pleasure to have an invite to come here and speak to you today. I would be able to speak broadly, but I want to narrow my talk, especially to the youth, because I see a big group here is the youth. In Kenya, I think when I speak of the Somali women, they have everything presented to them. It's rolled out, it's ready. You can access it. But when we look at it from a Somali perspective, we are not tapping it. We're not tapping into it as much as we want. The Somali women, the Somali youth, we do not participate into it. Even when we look at it out of government let alone the private sector, when we look at it into government, we have things like the Uwezo Fund. We have a new phenomenon which is called the table banking. It was introduced by Mrs. Ruto, the deputy president's wife. It's big, it's growing, but when you look at the numbers in the Somali areas in northeastern Kenya, it's very, very poor. It doesn't, if anything, maybe it does not exist. But in the rural parts of the rest of Kenya, you find that it is big. Women are into it. They have grown from small funds that started with about 1,000 shillings, and with a couple of months, they are up to 100,000 shillings now. They borrow and continue. So we tend to find as Somalis, we lock ourselves just within the community. We have businesses that have grown, have taken over. You know, Somalis who are multinational, we have big companies, but we want to talk about the Somalis who still haven't grown. We have banks which can give you facilities, but we do not access these facilities because we feel, as Zahra had said, it's a mother somewhere who is struggling to raise a family. She needs to bring her out to her family. So the little that comes in every day is so sufficient for her that she borrows, puts it back into the business, operates the business, puts it back. She does not have anything tabled. So when you go to the bank, you do not have any record. They have nothing, you have nothing to show. And maybe you've been in that business for the last 20 years. So you need to save. My advice for the youth, especially here, is start saving. The little you save, you build yourself a good business reputation. When you walk into the bank and they look at your accounts or your statements, they can see that you have a record, or rather a discipline of saving up something. When I go back into the youth, there are things like the Uwezo Fund. Whatever constituency you come from, there's the CDF, there's the Uwezo Fund, there's the whole bill that serves us women and youth. We need to tap into it. And all this takes us back into literacy. Let's get out there, let's read, let's get to know. Let's go back to school, let's tap into all these opportunities that is here for us. When we go back, maybe I can talk about Somalia a bit. The women in Somalia, other than maybe the opportunities not being there, we have that business acumen. The same thing I would say is, instead of us waiting to be funded, instead of us waiting for donor funds to come and programs, let's start small. Let's join hands, get 2, 3, 4 women. Let's try and do something different. Somalis, we are known to do maybe in the hotel industry, service industries. Let's look into food security. I was sharing with the rest of the panel, and many were amazed that you could do farming in Somalia. I do farming in Somaliland. It's doing very well. We are able to do it. We come together. Food security is there. Sell it back. We do not need to import food. We do not need to feed our people. We do not need year in, year out to be told there's drought. Yeah? It's simple. It's just getting the know-how. Let's learn. Let's do it. And let's take the opportunity in whatever community we are in to grab that opportunity. The youth, get what you can. Go out there. Find out, what is it? Why are you not getting it? Let's not die every day. Our youth are dying every day in the sea because we want to go somewhere. We don't know what is there. Those who went 20, 25 years ago are all coming back. Everybody wants to invest back home. So let's start saving the little we have, keep a record of it, get a bank account. Once you have a bank account, let's forget about the pillow banking, that you have some little, you put it here, you put it there. No. Let's start saving. Save on your M-Shwari if you're in Kenya. Then we move into the banks and we can grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nejma, you come from the banking sector, who's serving the youth and women. Can you tell us a little bit what has the banking sector been doing for the youth and women over the years?
Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nimo, for inviting us for this forum. Maybe I can just start talking about the first question of inclusion. And in Kenya in particular, if we look back a few years ago, a majority of the Somali business people were not able to access banking services because of our religion as Islam. And the biggest development in Kenya today is the development of Islamic financial sector, a very robust one. And as we all know, in Islam, trade is encouraged, and that is the basis of which Islamic banking is operating in Kenya. And even if on what the Somali can borrow from Kenya is the governance structure in the Islamic banking sector. And if you look at that governance structure, it's actually twofold. The first one, the board of directors, who are the shareholders who are recommended to be in the board. And secondly, it's the Sharia board. And that is the basis of Islamic finance in Kenya, which is robust. And that's why we have seen an upsurge in businesses in Kenya. People who previously could not access financing are now able to, because there is an Islamic, a Sharia compliant financial model in Kenya, and Gulf African Bank being among them. And there's 2 fully Sharia compliant banks in Kenya. So we are privileged to have that opportunity that is encouraging us and being able to support us to grow as businesses in Kenya. When we narrow down to women and youth, and maybe I can just start with statistics of women in Kenya, and it's a reflection of the Somali community as well. And if you look at the formal and businesses that have actually gone ahead and registered, this is sole proprietors, partnership companies. 39% of the businesses in Kenya constitutes of women. And if you look at the MSME, which is micro enterprises, and those operating at a lower capacity, maybe 40 million turnover per annum, 29% of them constitutes of women in Kenya. But the sad aspect is when we looked at the statistics, it shows that women are doing great stuff in Kenya. But the sad aspect of it is 43% do not have any relationship with any financial institution. And the downfall of that is if you need to access any money to grow your business, for any business to prosper, you need to be able to have capital injection. And so when the women need capital injection, they don't have that formal relationship with a bank, and therefore they're not able to access money to grow their businesses. And it's the same thing Efrahi is talking about, that when you've started your business, we are thinking we just want to provide for a family and to be able to have food on the table, but it's about time we had a change of mindset. And when we are doing our businesses, we should think we want to make it big and flourish and to be corporates in this country. And so when we looked at the reasons why women are not accessing financing in Kenya, the biggest challenge we have as women is that only 1% of us own property in Kenya. And when you walk to most financial institutions, the first thing you're asked is, do you have security? So that's the biggest challenge women have in Kenya. And if we narrow down to the Somali community, we say the biggest challenge we have is we don't have an enabling environment, especially for women and youth in Kenya. And those are the 2 major challenges. Do the women feel that I can walk into a bank and a bank that understands my needs? So we have fantastic programs in this country, and if I'm allowed to just narrow down on what Gulf African Bank is doing, and the pillars for women banking is actually 3: to empower, to educate, and to protect what the women have done. And if we look in Isli community, to ensure that the women are empowered, we have branches for women only, a branch where the woman can walk in and be able to access financing. And when we look at how do they access financing, our biggest action towards this is to ensure that the women are educated. How do you ensure that the women are accessing financing? And our biggest challenge first is to get the women to open banking accounts. If you want to be able to access financing, the first thing you need to do is to be able to open the account. The second thing is to have turnover. If you want to come to a bank, regardless of whether you're youth or women, the first thing the bank will check first, do you have an account? Second, what kind of turnover? So what we're encouraging the women is, in Somali community, there's the ayutas, there's everything, which is fantastic. But you also have to make sure that we are channeling money to the bank account so the banker is able to see turnover. And with that turnover, they're able to give you access to finance. The third most important thing is record keeping. Everyone here has alluded to record keeping, which is important. And it can be manual record keeping, it can be automated, and you can start with the manual and then eventually automate it, and that will ensure that you're able to access financing. And the fourth most important thing is, what is your net worth? As women in Kenya, women who are doing businesses, how are you creating your net worth so that when you're going to the banking institution, you're able to say, this is how much asset I own, and this is how much I'm able to actually position yourself to be able to access financing. Thank you.
Very detailed. Thank you very much, Najma. You mentioned about changing mindsets, and you spoke about the importance of financial literacy. And I want to get back to our long-term career Bangor. What does it take? What are the skills needed and individual needs to manage financial plans and challenges?
Thank you again. I'll highlight a little on that. Very significant area for managing businesses. Our sister Sarah raised a very good point while she was talking about women in Somalia, and this is common all over the world. Somebody might, run a business like a shop. They consume the goods. They don't know whether they're making profits. So when it comes to zakah, they count the stock. Am I right? When you're doing the zakah, you must be counting the profitability that you have made, and not the stock actually. So this way you go wrong. But they are very enterprising and very hardworking. Certain skills are very crucial. The financial skills are also always very, very crucial. And this starts with budgeting and planning. This is what we are lacking in the community. When the year comes to an end, you have to make a review of what has worked very well, which segment was very good, where did you have challenges. And when you're planning for the following year, now the same thing becomes a replica. What are the likely risks we're going to face this year? What's their severity level so they can get rid of them? And what are the controls we should put in place to ensure that the segment we are focusing does not have a major challenge, like scanning the political environment, the economic environment, the neighbors, and all that. This gives a direction. So when we look at the community in general, I am sure from my experience and involvement, this is largely lacking. Mostly they are very hardworking, very enterprising, but these are some of the areas that they are lacking. And then a very great ingredient missing amidst all this is the bookkeeping itself. You have to keep books for you to know if you are growing, if you are not growing. This bookkeeping will be able to help you balance your books with the bank, the supplies you are paying and managing, all that. Sometimes you will find out that people give out checks, and honestly, from the bottom of their heart, there's no issue. They're not calling you. They give checks like that. It's because of financial illiteracy. Now, along the way, because they're not following their balance in the bank or other things, you find that the checks bounce back. And this day is very dangerous. It has been criminalized in Kenya that should you issue a bouncing check, then you will find your name in CRB. And once you're in the CRB, this is a period for keeping the names of people who are defaulters, including people who have bouncing checks. The moment your name is in that list, no bank will entertain you. But the people do this because they are ignorant about it, but they're getting to know a bit. So a lot of skills in terms of bookkeeping, accounting itself, bit of planning, the basic skills of if you have made some profits, if you have not, what's your gross profit, what's your loss profit, which product is doing fine, which one do I change this year, which one do I get rid of completely, which segment do I focus, which area of my core competence will I continue with. All these skills, although none, may not be perfected and then kept the same space as the market risk and the like. And if, particularly if you look at the Somali women, although they are very hardworking, this is largely one area they are lacking even more than them in themselves. But I understand there are quite a number of ladies coming now, and probably in the near future that trend will change with the younger generation. But as a community, I will say and boast that we have been blessed by two things. One, the women are very loyal and hardworking, Somali women, very loyal and hardworking. Am I right? The men too are very hardworking and very shy to rob a woman. This is another great thing. And therefore, whereas the woman is very hardworking and the man is very honest in keeping away the property of the woman, who enjoys her mahar plus the inheritance from her father, then we are a blessed community. The sky is the limit. All we need is to continue with that hard work and then perfect the skills of business so that we know whether we're making profits or losses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe with one more one. Yes.
Maybe just to add on what he said about how hardworking the Somalis are. A study has been conducted in South Africa when the rise of this, crimes and what was happening. So they looked into it and said, how come the natives don't do business as much as, and before the Somalis went, I think the Indians were there doing it before and others. So a study was conducted to find out why, what is it? That's how important Somalis are. You know, we are forced to reckon with wherever we go, it's shown, it's there, and it's amazing. It's amazing what we can do.
Great. One more topic I'd like to touch base on is on financial innovation. There have been a number of very creative innovations that have been happening at the financial sector that has been supporting business innovation. Umar and all your colleagues are raising their fingers towards you. Maybe we start with you and then we move towards the rest. Yeah.
Okay, thank you again. Innovation is a big area and it's really required. As the demographics change, as the living style change, as the environment changes, certainly we have to innovate. And it's this innovation that keeps us in business for a very long time. And remember, what you have innovated today and is doing very good today will never be there. Tomorrow it will be outfaced by another and a new innovation has to be done. If you remember a few years ago, that was in Kenya, we had a telephone booth everywhere, if you remember. Postal telephone booth. Today you'll be surprised if you see one. There's not even none in Kenya. A few years ago, the lines in the banking halls were too long, even coiling round, because somebody had to come to the bank and do it. Then somebody somewhere identified that there was need for ATMs. So the banks that had, the international banks that had very good, budget for, innovation and the like, came up with the ATMs, so that if the bankers were on strike or it was a weekend or a holiday, all you needed was just to get your ATM card and then get from the ATM. That was a very big innovation. Now, it has been made almost irrelevant by the new technology we have right now. There is this inclusion, financial inclusion like the M-Pesa and the like. The M-Pesa became, revolutionized the whole way of how people do business. But it was not enough. The banks had to teach a lesson, come back, bolt back, and innovate mobile banking. Now the mobile banking had to go a notch higher, integrated with the M-Pesa platform, so lives become very easy. So from the comfort of your table or your desk or home, you can pay the telephone bills, power bills and all that. I don't remember the last time I've gone to Kenya Power and paid them bills. So as yourselves, this is the kind of innovation we need. And actually, when you innovate and make people's life very easy, the opportunity for the market grows bigger. Because the innovation gets rid of the old way of doing things and gives you a new convenient way. This new convenient way has one main objective, and this is customer satisfaction. This is where the business compete. If the customers are satisfied, very satisfied, then you will be in business for a very long time. Well, you could be a controls and risk management going on. Now, as you do these things, few more people will come with new homework that will make you as irrelevant. So two things came out as a result of this. There's one, the original traditional research, which is normally done in businesses. Why is my business failing? And you go and do research and do colossal sums of money to find out. By the time you get an answer, you already have been taken by somebody. There's a new concept called operational research. You observe what people do, consumer behavior. You look at their behavior, it's becoming a very key area of attraction, a voice to reckon with, a very key segment. An area whereby, without spending a lot of money like the usual research, you observe what the people are doing. And all these innovations I've just talked about is coming as a result of the operational gap, the operational research, observing what people need, how they do things, without even knowing what they do, and even without spending money on research or finding out, you can just understand exactly the pain people are going through and develop a new platform that makes their life very easy, and you find a very great response within a very short period of time. And then as you arrive on that, a few people will catch with you, and then you just become irrelevant. And now this is why other areas like, for example, the operational efficiency, as you do that on the scale for the mass market, the operational efficiency comes handy to support this. Because if the platform for innovation for the mass segment is doing very well for the mass segment and increasing the resources, then there is that segment of the market which requires operational efficiency. Now doing the big way of doing business is like, paying suppliers very quickly, remembering what check you have done and the like. That's now how the innovation on the side of operational efficiency becomes very, very nice. And on top of this, there's another one we cannot overlook, which is called process innovation. Very, very key. The process innovation is the steps you follow from A to Z. If you are applying for financing, for example, you need some finance for your business. And this time, that idea of the mobile banking and the other back office efficiency will not help you at that point. You know, the financing, I want maybe say 500 million for your big business. And this is where now the innovation in the process becomes very key. And it's done in many ways. So one is that the people who are running the products from A to Z, from the front office to the back, understand the basic requirements and features of the product so that when customers walk in, that people see that all of you have a standard way of approaching things. Now, this guy is talking a different language from the back. And now, as the people in the front hand over, the way it flows to the next level, and the transition takes all the way, very smoothly in a program manner with, standard level agreement between the departments. It takes 24 hours here. And then it goes to the next level, 1 hour. The next level, 30 minutes, and the like, so that this process attracts from A to Z. That innovation is very critical in business, and therefore, the integration of all these makes life easier. Now, meaning that these core competencies in the various departments and specific to various people have to be complemented in a traditional old way, which can never get irrelevant. That's now the way of doing things as a team, teamwork in the business. They are the people who have the core competencies in the front office, the financial innovation, the mobile banking, and the like. And then there are the people who have expertise in following the processes and sort of the operations that make this big for the bigger segment of the market. And then the process that are followed, all these core competencies were complemented, added together, and the people understand one way of doing these things as a team. Then that's the time the innovation becomes much more relevant than it is done individually. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. That was very useful. We have heard from all of you, great panelists who've given us and enlightened the audience. I'd like to open the forum to our audience who've made the time to come and listen to all of you. Insurance. The inclusion. Okay, we would like to take another one on inclusion. Okay, insurance. Oh, yes, the insurance. Have we not mentioned the insurance? Would you like to start on that? Because I do know currently you're the CEO of the Takaful Insurance, a very leading organization in the insurance. And then maybe we can move it forward, yeah.
Thank you. People know me as a career banker, and I've been in banking for a very long time. Now I've moved to insurance. I'm there for 7 months. I am now the CEO of Takaful Insurance Kenya. And it's also important to know how this area is helping revitalization of business and how it's playing a very big role in the development of businesses. As you do your businesses in various ways, you also need that partner to come in a Sharia compliant manner to give you your answers on, to cover your needs on the insurance. And therefore, this is the role Takaful is preaching. Takaful is Arabic word, and in simple terms, it means cooperative, where customers collectively and voluntarily contribute their money to a certain pool. Then they're called participants. Conventional insurance is called the pooling of risks. They bring their monies together and they hand over the responsibility to the insurance company. This is the opposite. The fund owners are the participants. They come together as participants, voluntary contributions, handing over the money to the insurance company as an agent now, as an agent. Once you give the money to a conventional insurance company, that money belongs to conventional insurance. If you hand over to Takaful, the fund owners are still the customers, and the Takaful plays the role of an agency on behalf of the customers. And so, with this concept, which is very hard to bring to this country, only that we are very lucky that we have a country that is very, adaptive to Islamic finance. How do we make it realistic and make life easier for people and innovate? So there are various things we are looking at. One of the great areas our people are involved in, the people in northern Kenya, the Muslims in particular, and other Kenyans who are pastoralists, is that, did we know that 60 to 70% of the livestock from around this country comes from northeastern province? It's a very large number. 60% to 70% is a very big, chunk of that market there. And therefore, sometimes they are wiped out by droughts. And droughts are very hard to control. It's an act of God. So as the couple, we have developed a new concept which has surprised the world. And this livestock insurance, very hard. Some people will not conceptualize. How are you able to do livestock insurance? So what we do is that it's not the question of my cow has died and I want the money. It's very hard to identify that. It's very hard to prove. A cow has no ID. A camel has no ID. Very hard to identify. Or people can be dishonest and they say, all my herd has been wiped out. These are now where the risk controls and the mitigations and internal controls become very relevant to prevent any kind of fraud and the like. So what we do is that we partner with organizations. First of all, they help us in giving us some funds for this. We jointly fund together. And then there are those partners who give us indicators of the drought level. When it's a good year, they say now there's no issue, things are very fine. The severity of drought may or may not be there, therefore it's good to go. And then when the drought comes and hits, it gives us red alerts. When it's now red or very bad, that's the time we intervene. And how do we prevent the drought from wipe out animals? Now we compensate the livestock owners, the ones who have participated and taken insurance for their livestock. We compensate them by giving them, money for fodder. They buy the fodder and feed the animals. The fodder is plenty here in Kenya, this part of Kenya. So these are carried, and now they take to the animals, and the grass from here is very, very, very great. Once a cow eats, some few handfuls, the cow starts giving a lot of milk even during that time of the drought. And therefore, us as intervention, we prevent the drought by providing money for fodder. And we're going a step further by interfering with the county governments so that they avail the fodder closer to the people, and when we give the money, the people can buy very easily from there. It's a new concept. We presented in Dubai, and we presented in Malaysia, and they were very surprised how this innovation is happening. So as young as the Kafuli is, the innovation that's going on right now is very great. And what we are doing is that we are focusing right now. We have seen a very great opportunity in the women segment. The women, nobody can ignore the women. It's a very vibrant force, big market to reckon with. I've done it before in the banks. Many banks are now focusing on women. And we're also innovating that market. We're going to do very big things. You'll hear maybe in the next few months. Very big things for the women in Kenya, and we will announce it very, very well. When we launch that one, I don't think any Kenyan woman will think of anywhere else. Takaful, everybody. The way innovation is done. And we're going further step in the general business environment, the big transporters and the like. We're also developing very big innovative products, and all of this we have seen from their need. And now what we're doing is that, as the couple we are looking at observation research, that there's a gap between what a bank can do and what insurance can do. And so as a banker and with my team, we are trying to bridge that gap of bringing the banks and insurance closer together like this. So that as our people celebrate on the banking side, people also celebrate the couple. So watch the space.
Yeah, I just want to add something to the importance of innovation, and this is very interesting. I've never had livestock being insured, and that will actually save a lot of lives and animals as well. And this is a nomadic society in Somalia that will be very relevant the day it arrives. But going back to the innovation thing, when we talk about innovation, it doesn't mean you have to invent things. For example, in Somalia, it is a dollarized economy. The local currency is totally fake, and the central bank doesn't print its own currency yet. So everybody uses dollar. And one innovation that has been very useful is sort of somehow a replica of M-Pesa. It's called EVC. You can go in Somalia and put some money in your mobile phone and spend that money without even handling cash. It also helps transfer of money within Somalia. You can transfer it from your telephone to someone else in the village who has a phone. And that is has created, opened the business transactions, and it helped economic activity. And that kind of innovation is critical to economic growth. I remember just a few years ago when the first ATM was opened in Somalia. It was a big deal. I don't know if the president or some higher officials came to oversee the opening of that. I mean, these are the kind of thing that you can borrow, you can learn, and you can implement. But as I pointed out earlier on, when it comes to financial innovations, you also need financial regulations to go with it, to make sure those innovations don't backfire. And the other point I just want to make is, as the financial institutions in Somalia grow, the culture of banking, which is lacking now, will probably grow with it. All the advice my colleagues gave about opening accounts and starting saving at smaller scale so that you get, those opportunities don't exist as much in Somalia now. But once the banking, my colleague Hussein, who's Amal Express, and others who are involved, could play a greater role in improving the culture of banking. And that leads, it opens a lending opportunity, and the business women and businessmen can borrow from these financial institutions. I think the future is bright. There is a long way to go, but I think given the innovations my colleagues talking about, whatever is happening, innovations happening in Kenya could potentially happen in Somalia. Especially as some of these innovations are driven by Somali Kenyans who understand the other side as well. And the culture is more or less the same. So what works here, theoretically should work there. And I think there is that kind of opportunity to help and develop. And I'll stop here. I know there are a lot of people waiting to ask interesting questions.
Maybe to just touch on innovation and what I had said earlier. If you look at, let's say for the women, we've already said that 1% of women in Kenya own property. So if you look at innovation on the banking sector, and for example, what Gulf African Bank has done is women who are doing business can now come and access financing with items that are like chattels. And by chattels, we mean your furniture in your house, your television becomes the security, your couch, and such things. And I think that's a great innovation in Kenya. And if you look at that mode of financing, so there's chattels, or the stock that you have in your shop becomes security, or you can find a guarantor who can come and become your security for that financing. And even for the Somali community, we are very strong with jewelry. So jewelry is a security that women are able to give and access financing. And coupled with Islamic finance, which is a great innovation in this country, the mode of financing could be something like a murabaha, and that gives a lot of comfort to the women operating business in Kenya, because once you've agreed on the pricing does not change, and that's the beauty of Islamic Bank in Kenya.
My sister Sarah.
I just wanted to comment on what our brother said earlier about the fact that Somalia's economy is dollarized. You know, I come from Somalia, and a few days ago I was buying something, and I was like, is that dollar? You know, I'm thinking in dollars because we buy and sell in dollars in Somalia. It's so, and you know, dominates the way you do and go about buying and selling things. The opportunity that Umar mentioned earlier about this big program you're going to launch soon, I hope that Somali women in Somalia will also have access to it, because Takaful is also very much present in Somalia. We have a big office in Garowe, as a matter of fact. But I just wanted to talk about this innovation, and some of these innovations in terms of financial management and banking are very gender sensitive. In particular, I wanted to talk about the case of the mobile money transfers and how mobile money transfers have empowered Somali women. And now we have a case study in the report that I spoke about earlier, where a woman today in Somalia, in the most rural parts, is able to sell her livestock by means of the mobile phone money transfer, and how it has been very advantageous to the Somali women doing businesses. Because you have this very small phone, and They call it torchlight in Somalia. They don't want the smartphones because it's not very good with the mobile money transfers. They have that torchlight, and at night you can use it as a torch, and in the daytime you're doing your banking and you're selling your goats. And I spoke with this very particular Somali woman, and she said, "This phone, it is very important to me. I have the PIN pass. You know, you have this code. You cannot go into your Sahel. In Puntland we call it Sahel. In South Central or Mogadishu they call it EVC, and in Somaliland they call it ZAD. I think ZAD. But that thing, you can't underestimate how useful it has become for the Somali women in terms of security and safety. You don't have to travel a lot. You are maybe in a village X, very far away, and you're able to sell your goat for $50, and it's in your possession. You have that money. So this is something that really we need to consider and build on in terms of innovation, and make it more accessible and more reliable and to Somali women in Somalia. Thank you, Nimo. I think the audience is waiting to ask questions.
Absolutely, I can see them, and I've learned. I do want to thank all of you first of all, because at a personal level I've learned so much, and I'm sure the audience do agree with me as well. And who would like to ask a question? Yes, we have 1, 2. Okay, let's start with the gentleman on my right, and then we go to the lady behind. Who has the mic?
Assalamu alaikum. And I don't want to use English when I use my mother tongue. So, magacaygu waa Axmed. Waxaan ka mid ahay dhalinyarada Nairobi ku nool, gaar ahaan xaafadda Kamakuji Isli. Waxaan rabay gaar ahaan macnaha intaan su'aalaha u gudbin, waxaan rabaa 3 su'aalood, mid idinka gadaal ugu laabtay, laakiin 2 ayaan rabaa inaan weydiiyo, midna tala ahaan macnaha inuu soo jeediyo. Sidaad inii muuqata stage waxa jooga ama sida macnaha aad tilmaanteenba waxay u badan yihiin dadka jooga dad dhalinyaro ah. sababta halkan u nimidna waxay ahayd in aan ka faa'iideysano xagga haday noqoto macnaha cilmi iyo waayo aragnimo iyo xagga luqadda, maadaama barnaamijku uu yahay barnaamijkii dhaqanka ee ama wiigii dhaqanka ee Soomaalida. Marka waxaan rabaa inaan weydiiyo dhalinyaro haddaan nahay oo dhalinyarada u hadlaya, ma idin muuqataa maadaama aad kurtiin Soomaalitiin afka Soomaaliga inay isticmaaleen, ma noo sheegi kartaan wax afka Soomaaliga aad uga leexateen oo na interest gareynay? waxaan rabaa inaan israacsanayaa midda kale waxa weeye dabcan markii hore hadday su'aalaha bilaabi lahayd way hagaagi lahayd, laakiin xoogaa wad dib ugu laabteen. Soomaaliya markaad ka hadlayseen wareegga koowaad waxaad ka hadasheen ciladaha iyo maaragtay waxtar la'aanta iyo maaragtay dhaliil baa u jeediseen. Marka dhalinyarada haddaan nahay ma waxaad macnaha leedihiin meesha waxba laguma hayo sii tahriiba xagga u sii socda intii aad noo faanin lahaydeen dalkiyo maaragtay aan ku laaban lahayn. midda saddexaadna waxa weeye ninkaas odaga aan weydiinay dhaqaalayahanka dal markii la qiimeynayo dhaqaalaha meelaha sektarada ama meelaha maaragtay laga fiiriyo in dhaqaalihiisu kor u soo kacayo ma noo tilmaami karto si aan u ogaano meesha heerkaan taaganaana? aad baa u mahadsantihiin dhammaantiin.
Sorry, I volunteered myself to answer the first question. The question that was asked by the gentleman is, he asked 3 questions, but I want to take the first one only. I'll give the rest to the others. He asked, this being a Somali forum, why is it that you guys are all speaking English and not Somali? Very good question, valid question. So I'll answer him in the language he has raised. So permit me for that. Well, saaka markaan u samaanay waa isweydiin saalka. Waxaan ma af Soomaali aan ku hadli doonaa. Mis waxaa loo baahan yahay looga kala ku hadalna. Hore baan uga tashan arrinta. haddii ay dadweynaha halka fadhiya Soomaali kiima dad cadaama joogo dad kala joogo maaragtay aan ku hadalna af Soomaali dadka maaragtay ka geeska cana halka ay nala joogaan maxaa faa'iido keenaysa in maaragtay ayagana xirna oo dhaga u laabno. Marka waxay nala noqotay adigoo yaani ku tixgelin oo su'aalka la dhacnay oo gar tahay, laakiin haddana waxa meesha ku jiro inay dadka nala joogaan sabab baan u qasabtay in af Soomaali aan ka leexan on Ingiriis ku hadal, laakiin waa qaadan hadalka amarkaad waa qaadan. انت كلامك كوان كوريجين. I'm asked to translate in English. These people are very sensitive. I've told him that early this morning when we met together, we asked ourselves, what is the medium of, what is the language we are going to use there when we go there? Particularly, I thought everybody that would be coming here as Somali, and therefore, I just wanted to know. Because I found we were all talking in English, and I found that, and I didn't know, some of us among us were very comfortable with English language for reasons here and there. So I was told that in the forum, we have other people who don't understand English. They're a sizable number, who don't understand Somali. They're a sizable number, and therefore it would be better if we can all speak the language that everybody understands. And therefore I told him that as much as we accommodate, the good point he has raised that being a Somali Heritage Week, why we are speaking English and not Somali, that we had to speak English because of, we expect everybody here knows English, and for the sake of others who are here who don't understand Somali language, so that we are reading from the same script, we are on the same page. I told him that that's why we are forced to speak English, but I told him that there's a very good value point. We take his comment with a lot of strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Umar, for taking that out of me and representing us. The second question, basically, he was talking about us mentioning a lot of challenges, but I think we've also mentioned a lot of positive and ways to tackle some of the issues, especially with the youth and women. And Hussein, would you like to reiterate?
Thank you very much. We were not only negative, I thought we were very positive. I thought my sister there was very positive. Our sister here on Najma on my right was very positive. But anyway, there's no harm in restating what we said previously. What we stated is that I spoke about the financial industry in Somalia. It's very positive. For the first time, we have 6 licensed commercial banks. And as our economist had alluded to, and other people before during our discussion, before the Civil War 1990, actually there were only 2 banks and both were state-owned. So if you look at it where we are today compared to where we were in 1991, it's tremendous. It is significant. And we have said that this is actually a good thing. We've also said that now we have a central bank that is taking its rightful role of regulating, licensing, and basically supervising the financial sector. And I'm speaking from the financial sector, so this is very important that we highlight that we have 12 money remittance companies that are licensed, regulated, and supervised by the Central Bank of Somalia. So this is a very positive thing. We talked about having very small bank accounts, the number in terms of financial inclusion being about 2% or less. That's the reality. I cannot change it. However, I am working towards changing it. I'm saying that, yes, open bank accounts, yes. We have microfinance, we have normal banking. My sister here, Najma, talked about using shuttles and using co-guarantors. In fact, I'm very happy to report here that in Somalia, all the 6 banks have murabaha, they have musharaka, they have diminishing musharaka as methods of financing. And interestingly enough, because of our land registry system in Somalia at the moment is not well developed, you cannot use land as a security, which is predominant in Kenya, and the bankers here will bear me out. Yet we are able to finance businesses. We are able to finance purchase of vehicles. We are able to finance for consumption. And also, if you talk to all the banks, although the track record the period is short, in the last 2 to 3 years, but still the default rate is very small, and we are very encouraged by that. We're feeling that there is a future for banking and finance, and there is a lot of innovation going on. So I think the picture we painted was not really a negative picture. What we said was that there is a lot of potential, there is a lot of good, bright things happening, and I think that is how I said it. So if we sounded negative, then we apologize for it, but I don't think that is what we intended to pass the message.
Assalamu alaikum. The matter of fact, we all look Somalis, but there are some of us who are not Somalis, by the way. Just to answer your question. Af Somali man kaaga jawaaba su'aasha mise af Somali kaaga jawaabaya laba su'aal baa weydiisay oo ahayd midda koowaad meesha wax ma jiraan miya dhaqaale negative midda aan ka hadlay yani markaan dhaqaalaha guud ka hadlay Soomaaliya waxaan ka hadlay soo dhaqaalaha u kobcay sidii uu u koray intii u dambeysay haddana waxaan iri wali uu ka si fiicnaan karaa macnaha maanan gaarin meel aan dhahno wax walba waa fiican yihiin laakiin sanadihii lasoo dhaafay dhaqaalaha Soomaaliya kor buu u kacay waxyaabo badan baa isbedelay su-aasha labaad oo specific ayd aniga igu soo jeedisana waxay ahayd xageen ka fiirina dhaqaalaha marka laga fiirinayo kobcitaankiisa waxaa la fiiriyaa qaybaha dhaqaalaha ka mida waxaa la fiiriyaa sectorska agricultureki maxaa ka soo baxay xoolihii maxay noqdeen servicekii maxay noqdeen nasiib daro ma haysano Soomaaliya informationkii iyo datadii aan ku dhehelayn exactly meeshaanay ka imaanayaan wixii ka yimid sababtoo ah national account ma jiro laakiin just a general observation si guud markaa u fiirisid waxaa arkaysaa constructionka wuxuu hadda qayb weyn buu ka qaadanaya dhaqaalaha Soomaaliya kobcitaankiisa service industry financialka telecommunicationka hoteeladii waxay ka mid yihiin kuwaas waxyaabaha dhaqaalaha Soomaaliya hadda ugu firfircoon marka la fiiriyo beerihii dhulku way joogaa oo dhulkii beeraha ka soo bixi jireen wuu jiraa weli waxbay iskaga bedelin laakiin waxaa ka maqan maxaa la oran jiray biyihii si loo keeni lahaa webiga loogu soo xiri lahaa dadkii beeraleyda iyadoo cararay dhulkoodii kuma noqonin macnaha Soomaaliya marka la fiiriyo beeraha iyo xoolaha baa laba dhabar u ahaa welina waa u yihiin laakiin waxaa jira waxyaabo muhiim ahaa oo caawin lahaa qaybahaas dhaqaalaha ayaa ka maqan inta sanadihii lasoo dhaafina waxaa nagu soo kordhay hadda marka la yidhaahdo isgaarsiinta telecommunicationka marka la yidhaahdo financial sector siduu walaalkan sheegay laba baano oo dowladda lahayd baa jira oo daciif aha hadda inta baanoo jirta way ka badan yihiin inta licenka la siiyey kuwa badan waa la siin doonaa markuu central bank uu awoodiisa sii kordhana waxyaabaha ay qabanayaan howlaha ay qabanayaan way ka sii fiicnaan doonaan say yihiin hadda marka rajo badan baa jirta wax badan baa isbedelay meeshii la rabayna lama gaarin laakiin wadan walba meeshuu rabay ma gaar wuu higsanayaa macnaha waa u soconnaa marka kuma niyad jabin macnaha waxaa jirta fursad fiican walaashan u dhiibay walaal
Axmed su-aashaadna weydiisay waa ku mahadsan tahay waa runta xaq baad u leedahay in afkaagii hooyo ka dhex aragtid fursaddan waayo waa usbuucii Soomaalida dhaqankeena la soo bandhigayaa dhaqankana waxa aasaas u ah waa afka hooyo anigii adiga waxaan nimadeeya waa Soomaalinimo aniga Soomaali baan ahay adna Soomaali baa tahay Nairobi joogto ani garawaan deganahay waxaan nimadeeya waa Soomaalinimo waxaan isku fahmaynan waa afkeeni hooyo waa muhiim laakiin waxaan joognaa maanta dal Kenya la yiraahdo afka lagu hadla halkaana ma ahan af Soomaali maadaama dhaqankeeni aan soo bandhigayno dhaqankeeni quruxda badnaa aan ku soo bandhigayno qoraal iyo maqal iyo muuqaal aan u soo bandhigayno dad kale oo afkeena la wadaagin waxaan rabnaa in ayaguna fahmaan ugu yaraan Axmed xaq waxaad u lahayd maanta halka in la keeno turjumaan baa xaq u lahayd oo af Soomaaligii iyo af Ingiriiskii isba bar socdaan baa la rabay in afka lagu hadlana anigu ma arko weakness wax fiican baan u arkaa in qofka Soomaaliga ah afaf kale uu dhaqankiisii iyo taariikhdiisii iyo aragtidiisii ku soo bandhigi karo wax fiican baan u arkaa laakiin aniga Yurub baan ka imid 20 sano waxaan deganaa Holland marka Soomaali isu timaado af Netherland baa lagu hadli jiray Soomaali kaliya bayna ahaayeen markii break time-ka tahay iyo markuu shirka dhamaadana af Soomaaligeena baa la geliyay why because meel kale aan joognaa waxaan rabnaa waxaan ka hadleyno wax sir ma ahan wax taabuu ma ahan waxaan rabnaa waxaan ka hadleyno in dadka kale ay noo imaanayaan ay naga faa'iideystaan waa mahadsantahay
Thank you very much. And Sahro was still emphasizing, yes, we recognize the importance of us speaking in Somali, but what we wanted is inclusivity. We wanted to share our stories with the rest of the world and the reason why we're actually speaking in English today. And I do want also Abdul Kafar, because he replied to the young man's question on which areas should we emphasize on, what is attractive to us as youth, and you had the following answers to them, isn't it?
The question was what sectors of the economy will grow, and so the question was prefaced, is there any positive things going on? And my point was, yes, Somali economy has shown remarkable resilience. It has grown over the years, especially recently, and it has a great potential to grow in the future if security were to improve. And the political process. So there is a great potential that's not yet realized, but Somalia is far better than it was a number of years ago. And second thing was what sectors of the economy. And what I said to the young man was agriculture, livestock, and crop production has always been the backbone of Somali economy, and it will continue to be. But then there have been other sectors that have come up and are making great contributions, which included telecommunications, financial sector in general, and as well as the construction. Given the destruction, I think these are some areas that will continue to play a larger role in the future growth of the Somali economy. That's the gist of what I said to him in Somali.
Thank you very much. There's a lady who's been waiting for long. Let's take that question. And then I would like to take also two more, and maybe one from non-Somali, and how much they've learned, whether this was of great benefit to them. So the lady there first.
Thank you so much. This was indeed a very educative discussion. We really appreciate. So we appreciate the fact that as women, Somali women especially, we feel very appreciated in Sharia compliance banking and financial institutions. But still, again, there is a fear in terms of banking. And as you all know, majority of our women are the elderly who are really, really doing and progressing very well in business. So they fear banking with financial institutions, maybe because they don't understand much about it, or maybe because they just have personal fears, maybe because they don't belong in Kenya, but still they have the right to bank with Kenyan banks. So my question is, what are you doing to sensitize and empower such kind of women, and even some men who bank, who do really, really risk pillow banking? What are you trying to sensitize them about? And again, because we have witnessed such kind of cases in Isli, in other parts of Nairobi, so what are you doing in terms of sensitization, because they need that? And then the question is, when Chase Bank had the issue, we all rushed to our banks, First Community Gulf, and withdrew all our money. So what are you trying to do to assure us that we are safe in financial institutions?
Yes, very good question. I'll tackle the first one first. And what are we doing to ensure there's financial inclusion, especially of the Somali women in Isli? And I had said earlier that we do know that there is fear of the financial sector, and a lot of women feel, is there an enabling environment for women to access banking services? If I may talk about Gulf African Bank, we have a women-only branch in Isli, at Isli Mall. The entire banking branch is just for women by women, from the guard manning the branch, to the manager, to the tellers, to the customer service. The entire branch is by women for women. And we have a lot of Somali-speaking women in that branch, so that they may be able to educate the women on how to access financing, what's the importance of financing. The second thing we've done is we have workshops, and we've had workshops in Isli whereby we call professionals to come and advise the women about what is the importance of access to finance, how do they position themselves to be bankable, how do they keep records. And apart from that, we also have a website for the women who are techno-savvy. We have a whole website for women only. And on the website, we've partnered up with UN Women, where we have experts. The woman just needs to go in, you ask your question, and the question is answered. It's a very private platform for the women to be able to access financial services, financial advice, whether you're a customer of Gulf African Bank or not. As long as you're a woman, you register to the website, and you're able to access journals, able to access the experts who will advise you about banking services. On your second question, I think an important aspect of educating especially the Muslim society in Kenya is when you are searching for a bank, what are the key things that you need to look out for to give yourself assurance that my money is safe? The first one, and Mr. Omar had already alluded to it, is corporate governance. First of all, that information is on the website. All banks are mandated to declare publicly shareholders of 5% and above. So my appeal to everybody, the power is in your hands to vet these banks and to know whether your money is safe or not. So first of all, the shareholders are stated. You go and check. As we know, a majority of the issues that happened in Kenya recently is about governance. So the power is in your hand. You go and check who are the shareholders of these banks. Comfort will give you if they are institution-owned, and that gives you a lot of comfort. The second aspect is that the law mandates banks to publish financials. So this is public information. All you need to go is check the financial records, check what the bank achieved last year, how much has it achieved this year, and if you come to Gulf African with any queries, we are willing to explain those financials. We're willing to show you the shareholders that we have. And the Islamic banks in Kenya are for us as Muslim Ummah, as the Somali community. These are our banks. These are based on our faith, and they conform to what Islam is all about. And all the transactions are transparent, and there's ethical and fair concept to it. I hope I've answered your question.
It was a well answered question, but I'll add a little on that to support her. And that question actually is very, very much appreciated. The lady observed very well. I think the banks have done a great job in terms of attracting women to the banks by giving them certain products that are tailor-made for them, and also certain branch or segment within the bank that's especially cut for them so that they can do their banking in line with their culture and their need. And there's a lot more to be done. Although they are very enterprising, maybe they have not gone to the level of warming up completely, and still maybe there are quite a number who are not believing, or they are keeping their money somewhere. I realize that as I stay in the bank myself, I could receive some delegation of women single or together, sometimes raising issues that are pertinent to them in terms of surety and need for banking and the like. And therefore we had some icons within the community of opinion shapers who could bring a lot of these women on board, and they did a lot of work, and we should do a lot more. What we need to do further, and we are doing right now, our plan is that ourselves, the couple, and the Islamic banks, we are doing some talk so that we can even raise the participation and inclusion even further by, first of all, reviewing the products and linking them together, such that when a lady enjoys that bit of banking, she has extra added value add activities on the side of insurance, so that we have got a whole kind of financial range. So this is the second step we are looking at, and it's going to be very interesting in the next few years. In terms of how do I trust a bank? Very good question. And she answered very well, but I'll add a little more. First of all the banks are regulated by Central Bank of Kenya. They're the ones who give license. They are the ones who get rid of rogue banks. But they have confirmed from, the public statements they have been making, that the fall of those banks is not systemic. It was as a result of uniqueness to certain banks. But you're right as a consumer and a person to know the health of a certain bank. And what's going on right now is that in line with corporate governance, now banks must publish, and this has been there for a long time, they must publish their financials every quarter, their financials, check for those. Every time the financials or bank are released, don't miss that. Look for them. And there are key areas you look for. Their ratios, very critical. Look at the ratios. You look at the liquidity ratio. These are technical terms, but if it's negative, it's a problem, there's how many problem there. You look at other ratios, they normally report on the right side of the financial statements. You look for them there. And then what's happening is that the information given to the public must be as transparent as possible. Nothing should be hidden. And actually, it's going a notch higher. That every time publication is done, the board or board committee must certify itself that the right financial standards international have been applied. And number two, the information given and the notes that are being given there to confirm the health of the financials are consistent with what is released. And therefore, once they confirm that and the board approves, this gives indication of the details of the financial institution to the public, such that people know exactly what's going on, what has been done, if it is done transparently, and something has been done a notch further. Now, in the last few years, the whole globe has adopted international financial reporting standards. This was not there initially. It came in the last 10 years. The reason for this was that every business around the world must do their reporting in a manner that is transparent and provides for simplicity, simple language, and also transparency of financial reporting, such that if you are in Bahrain, for example, you understand the language of the bank in the same way that you understand in Kenya. It has been made very, very simple. This was as a result of the great corporations that have fall down, like the Enron Corporation, Barings Bank, and the like. When they fell down, these have awakened the whole world, such that corporate governance becomes a key discipline in all institutions where they may be, and the banks have taken this as a very, very serious thing, and they have adopted international financial reporting standards, giving a lot of information, giving the right transparency of the financial figures and the like to the public. So when the financials are released, you can always look at those. That is one of the way of knowing your bank. As she says, you can know who your shareholders are, who the management, whatever, the top people and the like. This will give you comfort. And of course, every time you know there's a problem, there are many things they could lie. The problem we have is that, and as a community, we know we have that background of the lions, you know, the lions killing the cows. When a certain problem happens somewhere, the Somalis are very powerful in the what do I say, very oral community. You know, Mama Gashen, Samba la Soshegi, that word becomes very powerful. Have you heard this? This has been said without even verifying. You know, there's a large scale panic, and you'll find people panic, going to the banks and withdrawing their money. There's no need for that. If a certain bank has been closed, this does not mean that the rest will also be closed. But before if you want to, certify yourself, you have all the right to ask details of the bank, what you want to know, you can ask, and at the same time, refer to financial information. This public is in the website. You can check them through and you comfort yourself. Is your right? Do some more homework on yourself, but let's not panic. Thank you.
Hussein would like to also come.
I just want to point one thing about the failure of Chase Bank, and before that, I think it was Imperial. Was before that Imperial, and before that, I think it was Dubai Bank. The story that is very good, and it paints a very good picture of the Central Bank of Kenya, is that by law they should have only given back 100,000 shillings. But in the case of Imperial, they gave back up to 2 million shillings. And in the case of Chase Bank, they were able to return to the shareholders up to 1 million shillings. Up to 1 million shillings. So that tells you about 10 times. And for majority of the individual customer, that was actually more or less about what they had in the bank. So despite the bank failing, Dubai Bank was a special case, but it didn't have a lot of customers anyway. According to the published information, it only had 5,600 customers or thereabouts. So it was a very small bank. It was, for the people whose money was lost, it is hurtful and very painful. But from a systemic point of view, it was really negligible. It was not something to talk about. So generally, the story in terms of the financial industry is that it is well regulated. And actually, the 3 banks being closed, very close in succession, one being reopened, and the money being returned to the depositors, for me, that was actually a positive narrative rather than a negative narrative. Thank you very much.
For the sake of time, we'll take 2 more. And the gentleman behind, yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Before I start my question, I will request the cameraman and women to excuse me 2 minutes because I don't like cameras, please. My name is Abdullah Dayib from Tawakkal Youth Organization in Isli. I have 2 questions. My first question goes to Mr. Umar of Tawakkal. And as we know, 43% of the Kenya income is from Isli community business. In Isli, there is many rubbish, so dirty, many problems. One of the biggest problems is police every day in Isli, targeting Somali people. Asking every time ID, even if they have the national ID of Kenya, they say, let's go to the station, they follow his background, I don't know, they say, we take you to computer. That's my question to Mr. Omar. Is there an action, you are the Somali business heads in Kenya, is there an action you have taken or you like to take now? My second question goes to Mr. Hussein of Amal Express. As we know, Somali people are the most people who use 95% Amal Express. Is there a plan there are many refugees all over the world, Somali refugees, especially in Dadaab in Kenya and Kakuma in Kenya. Is there a plan you had put aside to help the refugees? Thank you.
I was asked a question out of context in area of my specialty, but nevertheless, I'll try what I can. And you know, there are various responsibilities. Even God, as big as he is, as great as he is, because he is enough to himself, as we are very weak, we have got limited speciality and a capability. I'm a very poor politician, I must tell you. And I have no interest in politics personally. But that question, which is a common problem for the Somalis, what you're saying is true, it's been heard everywhere. A policeman coming to rob somebody and then taken around and say this ID is not original, we have to verify. First of all, and Somalis quick in giving out money. Very quick. You know, people understand your behavior. When they understand your behavior, you become a very easy prey for them. If you have got the ID and you're arrested, the police ask you a few questions here and there, and you answer with a lot of confidence. If you're confident in the first place, if you have got the ID, it's genuine. There's no need for panicking. You just answer the policeman the question he asks you. And I don't think they have any right to take your ID and take it to their pockets, not by law. I'm not a lawyer, but it's not by law, the little that I know. You can only identify yourself. However, there are people who are responsible for looking at the interests of the community. They have been elected leaders. We have got an MP, firstly, actually of Somali origin, who understands Somali language very well. And that question should best be directed at the MP and the MCAs who are in Isli. Then there's also the lobby and pressure groups. You have got your lobby and pressure groups. There are those people taking care of the interests of the community who can raise these things in a very great way. Like the Isli business community. If they find that this is actually going out of hand, this harassment, the community has the right to lobby and say that, no, we are part of this country and therefore we can't accept this and petition the government. Why are you doing this? It pains me as a Somali, what happens in 2014? The government unleashed, a very great number of soldiers in Isli, trying in the name of flashing out the wrong people. And in the process, so many people suffered. So many people were arrested. So while the target was to flash out the wrong people, which are few, many people were, innocent suffered in the process. And there's been a lot of noise here and there. Before this thing come, it's always important as a community. We don't have to be reactive. We must be proactive. As a community, and you're targeted, do we have lawyers who are stand by? Every time there's this reaction, who stand for us? We don't have to look for them and run here and there after many people have been put in. There should be those champions, like in the city of Kenya, you have the right. Those guys, when this problem comes, they are ready, hired, and can handle the problem on behalf of the community. When these small things are done, you have already curtailed or prevented this kind of, wholesale discrimination and the like. When we do these things, you'll find this thing coming to an end. Again, with the new constitution, which does not allow any discrimination. We need to be prepared as a community. First of all, fighting corruption. This is our mistake. Every time police arrest you, you have to quickly cough even without questioning. You have to have your freedom. This you must stop because you are right from the constitution. The policeman must tell you why you've been arrested. He must tell you. He can't hide. Then after you say, fine, let's go to the station. This guy, if he finds that he has no case against him, he will release you very quickly. As you are right to ask for the guy in charge of the police station. If there's nothing like is framing you that you have done the wrong thing, then you're innocent. And until you're proved guilty, you remain innocent. But what people have learned is that over time, you look at the Somali, the way he's walking on Mambeto Kuja Hapa. You don't have to. The way I walk, God has made me walk like that. I mean, that's the way I'm born. That's the way I have learned walking. And therefore, nobody can tell me I'm walking in a funny way. I'm walking very fast. But the problem is ours. We must help the country. We must, together fight corruption. And if we are the ones who are betting, and every time a policeman calls you, before even ask you why, you're already 200 there. So you're betting, you're not encouraging. I think we need to collectively say the government does not agree with corruption. We must play our role and bring it to an end. And then we have to know our right. And know the right people who can champion this in parliament. And in other areas, look for the MP, look for the lobby group, have these lawyers and say at the personal level, you have to be a citizen, law-abiding citizen. You don't have to do any criminal activity. You must stay a clean person doing clean business. And you have to know your right. That's the way I think I can summarize.
Just to add on to the problems that maybe we are facing in Isli, I'm a nominated member, Maendeleo ya Wanawake, Kamukunji North, which falls into the bigger Isli where most of us are. A lot of the problems he has raised, especially garbage collection, I think it starts with us. It starts with all of us who live in that neighborhood. To wake up, organize ourselves, start coming together and cleaning. We meet at the chief's office about once a month. And always when these problems come out, the chief and the officials there say, but we don't see the Somalis. They don't participate. They are not out there. They don't come. They do not participate. So let's come out forward. We have a very good MP, very learned guy, very hands-on guy. He's always there on the ground. His office is open. He has a PA who listens to people. You want to meet him, it is always powerful when you go as a group, okay? Organize yourselves as a group. We come back to the youth issue. The youth are really hard, have a very strong voice in this country. Come out as a group, organize yourselves, and then go and address the issues. We have also a very strong activist, Mohammed Ahmed. He's very active on Twitter. He's called Somali. And hoping to see maybe in the new 2017, him coming out very strongly. You can liaise with him and come out. Again, it comes to the issue of Ahmed and language. I just want to tackle. If we go out, we are in Kenya now. The language spoken is English and Swahili. Let's learn the language. Let's learn what our rights are, okay? When the police comes out, you learn the language, you have the confidence to stand up to the OCS and to that arresting officer and say, what is it? What is it? What do you want? If he has an issue with your ID, you can challenge him. You say, you walk with him, let's go. He takes you, get your ID checked. But let's not encourage corruption. Let's not give out money. It doesn't matter if you're arrested for one day and stay at the police station, but you've put your voice out there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe to Hussein on the second set of the question.
Thank you very much for bringing out the question. I would like to answer it more general. The remittance organizations in this country, I happen to be their chairman, so I want to represent them more fairly in this forum. Although I was invited here as in my individual capacity. I just wanted to say that as Amal, we're doing, we believe that actually the greatest contribution we are doing to the refugees is the fact that we are giving them a channel for their family members to help them. So if you're in Australia, in New Zealand, in Canada, in the United States, in Norway, in Sweden, you're able to send money to your relatives and friends and family who are actually in Dadaab refugee camp. That facilitation, that service that we are providing, although at a commercial basis, on a commercial basis, I believe that the fact that we are able to cover the globe and also the Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps, I think for us, that's actually a satisfaction we derive from that, the fact that we are helping people to help themselves. But more directly, your question that says, what are you doing? We've just formed Amal Foundation, where we hope to be able to channel zakat and sadaqat basically, and where we are going to help. We do help in the refugee camps basically through our organization, but our capacity is not large in terms of the help we are able to provide. But within our capacity, we do provide the refugees in both Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps with some financial help. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take one last question. We're getting out of time. And the gender balance, or do we take
non-Somali?
My assistant?
I think non-Somali would be nice.
And a non-Somali. Okay, maybe we take the lady and then the man behind her. Okay, the lady over there.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine. I'm from the media. I have probably a suggestion or something. Most of us, the non-Muslims, do not have enough information that we can join the banks, the Islamic banks. And probably I know because she's my friend, but there are some who do not know. And maybe if we get to know, then we get to join them, because I believe after looking at whatever you offer, they are very what? I would want to come join as opposed to me being in the bank that I'm in. And maybe you can open more branches. Like I want to go to Kirinyaga. I come from Kirinyaga, and get Gulf African Bank so that at least I can withdraw my money from the ATM or whatever. But now if I have to be in Nairobi so that I can withdraw my money, then it becomes a challenge. Maybe probably you should do more sensitization to us, the non-Muslims.
First of all, the concept of Islamic banking is for everyone, and it's an alternative to conventional. If you're looking for a fair and customer-centric bank, the Islamic financing model is the best for you. In terms of answering your question, access, if you're outside Nairobi, we now have a mobile banking. Mr. Omar alluded to it, and that's a great innovation. So we do have a very robust mobile banking platform, and so you're able to access your money wherever you are. But what we've also done is we are trying to expand our outreach to outside Nairobi, Coast Region, and Northeastern, and we've recently opened Eldoret this year, and last month we opened Nakuru. So we are improving our network, and it's with the support of everyone that the bank will be able to increase its outreach. Thank you.
I'd like also Umar to talk about the insurance sector.
The whole concept of Islamic finance, be it banking or insurance, is for everyone. And actually, the features that are there, both on the banking products and the insurance, very interesting. It knows no boundaries. It does not say you have to be a Muslim or non-Muslim. Once the products are done in line with Sharia, then they become, they're useful to everyone and they are open to everybody. Therefore, it's available to every customer regardless of faith. And this is why we're doing the innovation. The one I've just talked about, that we're also looking at the segment, women's segment, and want to follow, developing that market. Already we have in mind that it's not for Muslims only. The structure and the products are based on Islamic Sharia, fine, but the features are too sweet. They are so sweet that they will attract everybody. My experience from the banking side is that one time I launched I launched a product, and my biggest buyers were non-Muslims. Why? The features are so appealing to them that they don't want to touch any other product. The idea of if you default, what happens to you? Do I know my budget? How do I look at the feature of this product? Is it fixed rather than reducing and the like? So therefore, I assure you that whether Islamic banking or insurance, the products which are there are for both Muslims and non-Muslims. But maybe I wouldn't want to talk about that being given the nani. These days, with the interest rate regulation, gone are the days where banks will be opening branch and branch. I don't think it will happen. Now people are switching to other segments as well as mobile banking now. Wherever you may be, you can access up to about 100 hours, 150, 100, wherever, you can even be in Turkana, you can be in Mandera, wherever you want. You can access your bank through your mobile phone in a day, through M-Pesa, through transfers from one account to another. The world has grown, and therefore the idea of putting a branch everywhere will not be necessary anymore. Even the insurance will be the same very soon. They'll be sleeping for a long time, but now it will be revolutionized very quickly. So thanks.
We're running out of time. One question from the gender band sitting behind the lady, and then we call it a day off.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdul Hakim. I've been really interested in the Islamic banking. Of course, I'm a Muslim, but apart from that, it has brought some changes. Like when you talk about Islamic banking and Islamic finance, issues of riba come into mind. And everyone asks, the question in everyone's mind is, do I go for this Islamic banking and Islamic finance just because the rates are less, the rates are a bit lower, or are they actually getting me away from maybe giving out riba? And being in Kenya, all the banks and institutions, all the banks are regulated by CBK, by the central bank. So how assured is a Muslim that he's not going to indulge into riba, which is totally haram? And secondly, on insurance, I believe you guys don't not only you don't only do the motor vehicle insurance, you also do others. On the Islamic perspective, when you talk about insurance, the basic principle of insurance, you're trying to protect me from a harm that hasn't happened. So how can you maybe, if I may say, convince a Muslim that he believes that this comes from Allah? So why not just deal with what is there today and not the future? So as an insurance company, how do you explain that? How do you convince this client to do that? Thank you.
Maybe I can pick on Islamic banking and allow Omar to also contribute on both of those fronts, as he's been in Islamic finance as well. Islamic finance and conventional banking is totally different. The Islamic mode of financing, there has to be a commodity underlying the transaction. And a common example we always give is if you go to a butchery to buy meat, the meat looks the same. How do you differentiate between a halal meat and a non-halal meat? And it's how the slaughtering was done. It's the, can I call it, transaction behind the slaughtering that made that meat haram, and the other one halal, right? And it's the same thing in Islamic finance. It's the contracts underlying the transaction that differentiates us. It's the mode of financing. So if it's a murabaha, the contracts are very different. I was in Barclays Bank of Kenya before I went to Gulf Bank, and the transactions is the differentiating factor, the contracts that we sign. And also the other thing in Islamic finance is that the governance is twofold. We have the board of directors, and we also have a very robust Sharia board. The Sharia board's mandate, first of all, is to vet each and every product. They guide us on how to ensure that is this allowable in Islam or not? And they also come and audit each and every transaction we do. Every service, every product is audited by the Sharia board. And this information is also available on the website. If you want to know who are the ulama that are in the board, in the Sharia board of Gulf African Bank, you're able to see. We also have an internal department, a whole department that works with us on a day-to-day basis to ensure that the products we offer are Sharia compliant. And I want to assure you that the Islamic finance is a model that works, that has been proven to work, and it's totally different from conventional banks.
The lady answered The lady answered very well on the Islamic question, banking side. I don't want to repeat it. All I want to say about that is that the whole country is very supportive and focused on the idea of Islamic finance. Just last Friday, the government has launched a new program to develop Islamic finance as an integral part of the 2030 vision. This tells you that there's a very big opportunity here that needs to be unlocked. But the details of governance she has talked about, I won't go there. On the insurance side, it's interesting the way you said that why don't I trust Allah and leave this thing because they don't happen? Why don't you concentrate on now? This has been answered by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1,400 years ago. There's a Sahabi traveling in the desert with his camel, and he overslept and left the camel loose, not tying. So the camel disappeared. When the man complained, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, "Tawakkaltu ala Allah, but tie your camel. You trust God, but tie your camel." This tells you that Islamic finance is not a loose ground for loss of controls. Look at the way the Prophet did. Look at the controls there. The only control this guy needed was to tie his camel very well asleep. That's all. Nothing else. And anyway, he will sleep because of the tiredness and the like. And therefore, the risk mitigation, the controls are there. Now, you can say Tawakkaltu ala Allah, but it's already been answered. And then, this is where the insurance comes in. And you have to manage your risks very well. And if you had a conventional before, and now you have Islamic one, then it becomes better and makes life very easy for us. The concept, as explained earlier, is different from that of conventional banking, which pools resources by pooling risks of customers together. On the Islamic one, it is cooperative concept whereby participants contribute their funds voluntarily, such that the ones that are unfortunate are compensated out of this. So before the risk comes, it's quite critical and essential that we think ahead that if I have to cover my risks in a manner that's complying with my faith and that's giving me the cover that I want, then why don't I do it? Because there's already profession and Islamic Sharia. To give you the comfort, it's regulated by the insurance regulatory authority like CBK regulates banks. Well regulated. On top of that, there's a Sharia board that regulates the products and the functioning and the operation of the entire takaful operation, directing what ought to be done and not to be done. With all this comfort, now we cannot say that we can just leave this to God. God is there, is always there, unquestionable. But God wants us to be reasonable as well and to call our risks. The way He has managed the risks so well and so many times. Examples of these are also picked from the Quran. Look at Surah Yusuf. When the Prophet Yusuf told his sons, when they went to Egypt, what did he tell them? Enter the city from different doors, isn't it? Spread the risks so you don't get from one door. The risk controls and mitigations are always there in Islamic finance. Now there's something new coming up. The society certainly needs insurance. There are certain aspects, especially the vulnerable groups like women are facing, and they badly need takaful now, to develop a product for them that takes that headache away from them. Right now, there's a new approach, new requirement in the insurance industry, very hot right now, that initially, whereas insurances were to take their marine cover for international organizations, international companies, now Kenya has made it must that anybody who's importing goods must take insurance cover for their goods from a local insurance company. And who are the importers of the majority of these goods? The Muslim community. And the cover is there. Don't you think it's handy, my brother? I will leave it to you then. Thank you.
I guess time has come. I take the permission from the audience to close this session. It's been very enlightening. Please give a round of applause to our panelists. We're grateful for your experience that you have shared with us. Yes, you can see it's more than 100 people in this forum, with a majority of you that you have educated and are going to move forward with your advice as well as your experience that you have shared. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience for making time and being here. Thank you very much. Please stay around for the Somali cultural dance that is next. So thank you and good day.